Long before paper, pens, or printing presses, people carried their stories in their voices. Around firelight, they spoke of gods and monsters, heroes and fools, love and revenge. Every word was a spark that jumped from one mind to another, keeping history alive through memory alone. These were the first storytellers, the keepers of riddles, games, and tales that built civilizations long before writing did. Storytelling is older than writing, older than cities, older even than recorded history. It began not with ink but with voice. When humans first learned to speak, they discovered the power to share imagination. Stories became survival tools, riddles became lessons, and memory games became entertainment. From the deserts of Arabia to the icy plains of Scandinavia, every culture had its own oral games and puzzle songs. Tonight, we return to that ancient circle to meet the world's first storytellers and rediscover how words once lived in the air, not on the page. The first stories began beside fire. In the Paleolithic world, the storyteller was not an entertainer but a teacher. He told tales of the hunt, the stars, and spirits that guarded the night. Imagine a group of people wrapped in furs, the crackle of fire the only sound between words. Each story was repeated so often it became rhythm, memory made music. In West Africa, the griots were human libraries, storytellers, poets, and musicians who remembered entire histories by heart. Imagine a griot strumming a kora beneath a baobab tree, reciting the lineage of kings and warriors while villagers sit in awe. Their memory stretched across generations, ensuring that no ancestor was ever truly forgotten. In the cold halls of the Vikings, skalds sang of war and glory. Their verses, called sagas, turned warriors into legends. Imagine a skald standing beside a roaring hearth, reciting a rhythmic poem as soldiers raised their cups in salute. Each word was a weapon sharper than a sword, keeping courage alive even after death. In India, riddles were sacred. Priests used them to test wisdom and awaken the mind. The Rig Veda itself holds ancient riddles hidden in verse. Imagine a circle of students sitting cross-legged before a guru who smiles as he asks, "What moves without feet, speaks without tongue, and dies without breath?" The answer, the echo. These oral puzzles taught thinking as deeply as they entertained. In ancient Greece, storytelling became a form of social play. During banquets, guests challenged each other with riddles and tales that tested wit and imagination. Imagine a marble hall lit by torches, philosophers sipping wine as one asks, "What has no beginning and no end?" The answer time makes them laugh and nod. Through games like these, intellect became celebration. Before Islam, in the wide deserts of Arabia, poets were heroes. Their words could unite tribes or end wars. Around campfires, they challenged each other in Cassida's poetic duels filled with riddles and metaphors. Imagine two poets standing beneath the stars, voices echoing across the sand as their tribes listen in silence. To the Bedouins, poetry wasn't art, it was life, honor, and identity carried on the wind. In ancient China, storytellers performed in village squares and tea houses, blending riddles with parables. Listeners tried to solve puzzles hidden within tales. Imagine a storyteller standing before a crowd, holding a bamboo fan, his voice rhythmic and calm. "It has 1,000 eyes but cannot see, what is it?" The answer, rice. These riddles tested observation and wisdom, making every listener part of the performance. Among Native American tribes, oral storytelling was a sacred duty. Elders told legends through songs and gestures, teaching children to remember through rhythm. Imagine a group of children around a fire, repeating each line of a story in unison as their elder nods proudly. These games weren't just fun, they preserved entire cultures without a single written word. Memory itself was ceremony. Across Africa, riddle contests were held during long evenings after work. The village gathered, and one child would begin. "What grows without roots and lives without breath?" The answer, fire. Laughter followed each clever answer. Imagine families sitting beneath starlight, drummers keeping time as children trade riddles. These games trained memory, wit, and speech, turning intelligence into community celebration. In Japan, storytelling evolved into poetic games. Courtiers composed verses that had to connect seamlessly, forming living chains of poetry called renga. Imagine nobles seated on tatami mats, one reciting a line about rain while another responds with sunlight. These word games weren't just art, they were conversations in poetry, blending competition with beauty. In ancient Egypt, priests were also storytellers. They used myths to explain creation, gods, and life after death. Each tale was a riddle that hid divine truth. Imagine a dimly lit temple where a priest tells the story of Ra's journey through the underworld, his hands tracing patterns in torchlight. Children and elders listen in silence, their eyes wide. For Egyptians, stories weren't imagination, they were instruction, whispered by gods through human tongues. In Mesopotamia, storytelling took its first written form, but it began orally. Before clay tablets, poets memorized hundreds of lines from tales like Gilgamesh. Imagine a storyteller standing on temple steps, chanting verses to a crowd, while a scribe scratches symbols onto wet clay. The rhythm of voice became the rhythm of language itself. Writing didn't kill oral tradition, it preserved its heartbeat. The early Hebrew people shared wisdom through oral parables, simple stories with hidden truths. Shepherds and traders recited tales of kindness and betrayal around evening fires. Imagine a traveler telling a story of a lost sheep and a forgiving master, his voice soft as stars emerge above. These oral lessons became the seeds of sacred texts, carried in memory long before they were written. Before Greek myths were written, they lived through performance. Storytellers called rhapsodes recited Homer's epics entirely from memory. Imagine a man in a crowded amphitheater, cloak fluttering as he speaks of Achilles' rage, his voice echoing off stone walls. The audience sits spellbound. Each retelling was different, shaped by the performer's emotion. The myth was alive, reborn with every breath. In ancient India and later across Asia, Buddhist monks taught through short parables called Jataka tales. These were moral riddles, lessons hidden in animal stories. Imagine a monk sitting beneath a Bodhi tree as children gather around, listening to a tale of a clever rabbit who outsmarts a lion. Each laugh carried wisdom. Through these tales, enlightenment was made simple, truth disguised as play. In the grand courts of Persia, storytellers were treated like scholars. Kings invited them nightly to recite tales of valor, magic, and destiny. Imagine a candlelit hall filled with silk cushions and golden lamps as a storyteller stands before the Shah, describing a hero who rides across deserts to rescue a lost princess. The room falls silent, each listener lost inside the rhythm of voice. These stories would one day inspire 1001 Nights. When traders and pilgrims crossed continents, they carried stories like currency. In roadside inns and taverns, strangers exchanged riddles for food or rest. Imagine a smoky inn where a weary traveler leans forward, saying, "Guess this, and I'll pay your meal." The laughter that follows is universal. Storytelling became a bridge between languages where words replaced coins and riddles bought friendship. In the crowded forums of Rome, storytellers performed in public squares. They imitated voices, acted scenes, and ended each act with a clever twist or question. Imagine merchants pausing their trade to watch a man climb a fountain base, gesturing dramatically as he asks, "What feeds the poor and starves the rich?" The answer, pride. Laughter and applause echo through marble streets. In those moments, storytelling was the city's heartbeat. Among the Celts, bards competed in story duels, each trying to outwit the other through poetry and riddles. Imagine a misty hilltop where two cloaked storytellers trade verses before a roaring crowd. The audience cheers as one delivers a clever riddle and the other answers in rhyme. Winning wasn't about prizes, it was about honor, memory, and the melody of words. Even the emperors of ancient China loved bedtime tales. Courtiers and poets were summoned to read stories that mixed wisdom and wonder. Imagine an emperor reclining beside a lanternlit pond as a storyteller's calm voice describes dragons, immortals, and riddles of fate. The emperor smiles faintly, the moon reflecting on water. Even power bowed to imagination. Before schools, before alphabets, storytellers were the world's first teachers. They trained minds through rhythm and repetition. Imagine a child repeating every line his grandmother says by the fire until he can tell the story himself. Each word was an exercise, each verse a lesson. These storytellers built human memory like temples, brick by brick, sound by sound. In ancient tribes, stories were used to heal. Shamans told symbolic tales to calm fears, drive away nightmares, or give courage before hunts. Imagine a healer tracing shapes in the air with smoke as he whispers a story of a hunter who defeats his shadow. The tribe listens, breath slowing, heart steadying. Before science, stories were therapy, curing the spirit through imagination. Along the Silk Road, merchants carried more than silk and spices, they carried stories. Riddles and fables passed from Persia to India, from China to Europe, changing shape with every retelling. Imagine traders resting beside a caravan fire, one sharing a story of a wise fox, another adding a new ending. These tales became the first global language, proof that imagination travels farther than any map. In ancient societies without paper, storytellers were historians. They remembered kings' deeds, wars, and treaties, passing them down through generations. Imagine a man standing before a crowd, eyes closed as he recites the rise and fall of empires from memory alone. His voice carries centuries of truth. To forget was betrayal. To remember was duty. As writing spread, the old storytellers began to fade. Their voices grew quieter, replaced by ink and scrolls. Imagine an aged bard sitting alone beside a dying fire, his stories now written by others, his voice echoing softly in memory. Yet somewhere, a child repeats his tale again. The voice lives on, transformed, not lost. When the first scrolls appeared, many storytellers feared their magic would vanish. Yet the opposite happened, their words found immortality. Imagine a young scribe copying verses by lamplight, his pen trembling as he writes what an elder recites beside him. The flame flickers, and for the first time, a voice becomes eternal ink. Writing didn't silence the spoken word, it carried its echo across time. Even centuries later, the tradition survived in games. In medieval inns and monasteries, travelers shared riddles, jesters improvised rhymes, and monks played word puzzles to train their minds. Imagine a candlelit tavern where strangers trade questions for laughter. What walks on 4 legs at dawn and 2 at noon? The old Sphinx's riddle still lives, dressed in new tongues. Every age found new storytellers. Shakespeare's stage, Homer's verses, African griots, and desert poets, all different voices, same purpose. Imagine their spirits standing in one vast circle beyond time, some with scrolls, some with drums, some with microphones. They smile because they all speak the same ancient language story. Even now, when we solve riddles online or tell bedtime stories, we repeat their ancient rhythm. Our jokes, poems, and films are their descendants. Imagine a parent reading a story to their child under soft lamplight without knowing they're continuing a 50,000-year-old tradition. The human voice remains our oldest magic. From the first fires to digital screens, storytelling has always come full circle. The riddle changed shape, but its heart remained the same, to connect minds through wonder. Imagine a glowing fire fading into the screen's light, faces illuminated once more as stories flow across the world. The tools changed, but the voice never stopped. The circle never broke, it only grew. The first storytellers left no books, no monuments, only echoes. Yet their voices built the foundation of every language, song, and dream we know. They turned silence into meaning, fear into laughter, and time into memory. Each story told today, each riddle solved, is their heartbeat still echoing in us. Because before we learned to write, we learned to listen, and that made us human.